Good evening and welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission for Thursday, March 24th, 2022. I've asked Commissioner Bryce McConkey to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. All the planning commissioners are here except Commissioner Bryce Anderson. Sometimes he's a little bit late, and we'll welcome him if he does show up. For staff, we have Kent Page with the Planning Department, Nicolette Fike with the City Recorder's Office, Scott Petrick with the Engineering Department, Frederick Donaldson, the City Attorney, and Doug Meldrum, our Economic Director for the city. Next item on the agenda is we set aside time for public input. This is generally for any public input other than an item that is marked as a public hearing on the agenda for this evening. We ask people to keep their comments to about 3 minutes and not to repeat. And the microphone is open for anyone who would like to make public comment at this time. Yeah, if you're here to comment about an item.
No.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
My name is Aaron Evans. I live at 1126 West Fairfield Road, Saratoga Springs. My comment is you've taken in planning, but you don't plan for the number of people that you want to put in here. If you're familiar with Fairfield Road, they did allow us to take and put no parking on the one side, and that's fine. The problem is they park on the other side and forget the fact that they park halfway out in the road. So we need to do something about that. In other words, I'm thinking that maybe our local police ought to patrol that periodically and cite the people that are improperly parking their equipment around. And I'd like to see that problem taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment at this time? I'll go ahead and close public comment. Kent, is that something we can refer to the police department if people are parking? Because I know there's a limited, you're supposed to park so many inches away from the curb. Is that something we could pass along to them?
We can pass that on to our
police
thanks.
department. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing for the River Walk rezone. Sorry, got that spaghetti in my mouth. R110 to R19 located at approximately 210 East Brookshire Drive. Stephanie Grecius is the applicant. Kent Page, the senior planner, will be presenting this. Is the applicant here with us this evening? Would you like to come up and while he's presenting, and we'll let you make comments once he's finished? You can sit down.
Commission, this is a rezone application from R110 to R19, just southeast of the Devonshire Park, along the Jordan River. The land use is low-density residential. That will continue to be the land use with if this is rezoned to R19. As you can see, it's about 16.47 acres. Here's a concept plan that's been submitted. And just to remind you that concept plans is just to give us an idea of what could develop in that area. It's a non-binding plan on the city's part and also on the applicant's part. And the staff recommends approval of this rezone of 16.47 acres from R110 to R19. If you have any particular questions, or I'd be glad to try to address those at this time.
Okay, it looks like our city attorney rang in. Did you have something?
Is this the matter that we discussed?
Yes.
Okay, I emailed you and the commissioner a copy of the part in the bylaws that relates to this issue. So if you want to, what it indicates is if there is an apparent conflict, if you want to declare it, and then you're to leave the room until the matter is resolved. And then, sorry, I didn't know that until I read the bylaws just after you asked me prior to this meeting. So, and then you can come back. I'll come and get you when the matter is resolved. So you just need to declare it and just say your relationship, and then you leave, and then I'll come and get you in a minute.
So let me turn your mic on.
Okay, so I just need to declare that I have a personal relationship with Stephanie Cias, who is listed on here, and so just recusing myself from this. Thanks.
Okay.
If you want to just go to that conference room, and I'll come get you.
Thank you. All right, so the applicant, would you like to add anything to the presentation?
No, thank you. I really appreciate staff. Obviously, I'm not Stephanie.
Can you grab the, yeah. Oh, could you state your name and address for the record?
You bet. My name is Dan Ford.
Push the button. Okay, they have it mismarked. There you go. Now go ahead.
All right. My name is Dan Ford, and I work with Colliers. My address is 2100 Pleasant Grove Boulevard, Pleasant Grove. I am not Stephanie, but Stephanie contacted me earlier this afternoon. We've been working together on this for a little while. And she's actually running for office right now, and they had a change in her schedule with the debate tonight. So she asked me to attend here for. But I'm very familiar with the property. Mr. Kuhn here is the current owner of the property, and we invited him to be here. I really appreciate staff. They've been really helpful. I read through the staff report, and I think they covered all the points. Just one little thought that one thing that we were discussing that it was part of it was, if you look to the south of us, it's all that commercial that they're doing. To the west of it, they're 6,500 square foot lots. There's a lot of things happening there, and we're really excited to bring this to the community. So,
Okay. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this for a public hearing at this time. Anyone would like to make comment on this item, the mic is open. All right, I'm going to close public comment, and I'm going to open this up to the commission for,
Chair,
yes.
can I just ask Scott really quick to switch those two mics, and that'll solve
That would be
the problem.
great.
Sorry about that.
Okay, the applicant, go ahead and speak just to make sure.
test.
We're good. All right, so I'm going to open this up for the commission for comments at this time. Commissioner Kilgore.
Just want to check, has there been a traffic study planned or done for this, that includes this area, this property?
I believe we've done a full traffic study yet. We are waiting till we got the rezone approved. We do have that major collector running through the middle of the property, which we're hoping will be adequate for the units we're putting on. But I don't believe we've done one. We haven't turned one in yet, have we, Kent? I do a lot of traffic studies. I don't believe we've done one.
No.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Scott, did you have anything?
I was just going to say the traffic study would come at the preliminary plat, so it's not quite to that point yet.
Okay, thanks. Any other, Commissioner McConkey?
I had a few questions about just as close as this is to the river. If staff could explain a little bit about the Jordan River erosion hazard area and the special flood hazard area, and if there's some or all of portion of this parcel that's in the flood zone.
So looking at the plan there, everything that's on the east side of the east, north, and south road would kind of fall into that floodplain / wetland area. So it is a sensitive area, and there's going to be some significant challenges with developing in there. Part of it does go into the Jordan River meander corridor, so there's going to be armoring requirements along the banks. It is going to have some significant engineering done.
Okay. Is this going to pose a major problem, or we don't know until they get going? I mean, I know we're talking whether or not this is going to get rezoned. I recognize that, but
So when they start going through the process, they're going to have to work with FEMA, and they'll also have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA for the flood map
right.
rezone. So they'll have to meet the requirements to get that. And in this area, raising the land in that area could affect other areas downstream, upstream by changing the flow path. So that's going to have to be accounted for in their engineering studies as well. So when it's all said and done, it should be fine as long as they go through the engineering steps. They do have to meet all of the FEMA and Army Corps as well as city requirements as well.
Okay. And then as far as sewer, I'm assuming that the sewer is going to end up being, well, that's probably not very low.
No.
They're going to have an issue with
The
sewer service at those elevations?
The benefit is they're really close to the Posey lift station, so they shouldn't have an issue with the sewer right now.
Okay. And the lift station is there just because you can't get the slope all the way to the treatment plant?
Yeah, the lift station is pushing it to the south side of Pioneer to a sloped run to the Timpanogos Special Service line. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that I think that was all I had. Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I just have a question for the staff. I've heard, talking about Mar Meadows in the past, it's been chalked up as kind of a mistake to put the fact that we let that little pocket of residential sit where it sits right in this big commercial zone was poor foresight and poor planning before all of our time here. And so there we have it. There we have Mar Meadows sitting where it sits with all of the issues that it's had because of that with traffic and what have you. So now we're going to rezone and add on to that, I guess, is my question. Like, if this has been chalked up in the past as an oops or a whoops or wish we would have done that differently, I guess my question for the staff is, with your recommendation, why we would continue to add on to that residential whoops, if you will. And I'm not saying I'm calling it a whoops, but that's how it's been expressed to me in the past. And so now it's like, okay, well, we messed up, so let's just add on to it and make the rest of it residential. I don't know that anyone can explain it, but has there been those discussions? Can you add any additional thoughts to that?
Are you referring to the residential property just to the west?
Just to the west, Mar Meadows, yep.
Yeah, I've been here for just 3 months, but
Yeah.
I haven't heard any discussion about
And I don't know that anyone has been here.
about that development.
Please.
I do know a little bit about this only because I actually met the Coons a long time ago, and part of at least part of what I was originally brought to, this is maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago, is if you take out that commercial development to the south and then take out anything that happened to the west, you're looking at, I can't remember the number of homes there, but off of a single access.
Yeah.
And so there was a public safety issue that was huge.
Which we've fixed, right? We've added a different.
Which has been fixed by that commercial connection. we're going to help alleviate that by connecting that major collector to the south. There's some other problems too that happen too, and maybe this is something we're working with engineering on, like the storm drain from Mar Meadows, they just stopped and dumped it in the middle of this property, which is why you see that wetland thing. If you look at historically, like take a Google map, there's not a historical wetland, but because of the drainage that they just stopped, they had a Corps of Engineers. We've had a lot of discussions with the Corps of Engineers on what can happen to help with what was created with that that wetland. Anyway, there's a number of things that, I'm sorry, I'm probably going on a tangent, but there's a number of things that, but from what I understood, it was primarily the access. And then you have that stunted access that was fixed when they did the commercial piece, where you now have a light there on Pioneer Crossing, whereas you had everybody who wants to go left there, right there at the Smiths, which is just, that's a mess, trying to go left there. So from what I understand, most of it was traffic, but, maybe engineering can explain a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about the area, but, Ken?
Our planning director, David Stroud, has texted me and just indicated that Riverside Drive will carry traffic north when it's completed.
Hey, heaven knows we need more north-south, so I'm not necessarily opposed. I just know that this has been chalked up, and so you say, okay, so why add more homes in a place that was maybe should have been all commercial to begin with? So now that we have residential there, I guess we'll go with the recommendation. At least I will. I'll go with the recommendation of the staff. I just love to understand more of the thought that's gone behind that.
Commissioner Ryan.
Sorry, was that me?
Yeah.
Sorry. I appreciate the comments that have been said by the fellow commissioners. I think what Commissioner Anderson said is definitely valid, because it's almost, the square peg in a round hole as it was. I feel as though adding to and at least keeping it low density is a win overall for the city, and it may help complement Mar Meadows, so it's not just there and then we add a little bit to the pieces in the back, and keep it low density, which I want to thank those who are the developer and those who are proposing this. We appreciate that, because it seems so, at least I do, it seems so often that we're moving high density items through this commission often. So to keep it low density, I think is a win for the city, and I think it'll help accentuate the neighborhood feel, hopefully, for that area by adding, the 30 lots, I believe it was. So, and I like the way that I know that's not what we're proving tonight, but there's a preliminary concept there, and I like the way that we have a couple north-south corridors going through the piece of property.
Commissioner McConkey.
I have nothing after Commissioner Ryan. I don't have anything else to say. Appreciate what he said.
Okay, I have a couple questions. You mentioned that the drainage was kind of created that wetland. If you guys put a pipe in there and take that away, will the Army Corps reevaluate it, or?
So there's an existing permit from 2003 that would have allowed them to drain into the river. Here's what I've been told by my engineer: don't touch anything until the Corps approves it.
Okay.
So even though there's an existing permit, we plan this concept on not getting any kind of approval for any kind of movement of it. And so and I've talked with the Corps of Engineer, and he, it's really interesting how their permitting works. We're working through that process, but that's why our concept looks the way it is. It's an assumption that we won't change anything. And if we're allowed to change it or able to extend that to where it drains into Jordan River, we will. But that would be subject to the city and everybody else. But I don't have an approval on that.
Okay.
Right now. But we have an old permit from 2003, but we're not proposing that.
All right. My other thing, I have a concern with R19 in general, and that's because R19 allows footprint development. So for me, to get a yes vote for me, we're going to have to put a condition on this saying that you will not do footprint development in this area. Footprint development.
What? I don't know what that is.
Okay, so what that is basically is you'd be able to put in, you wouldn't have a minimum lot size, and you'd be able to put more homes in, and the homeowner only owns the footprint of the house.
Oh, if we want to put in a condition that it's a minimum of 9,000 square foot lots, I'm great with that, whatever you need to do. We can't do basements there. We've got a really high water table. So I'm great leaving at 9,000 minimum. That's how we planned it.
All right, so whoever makes the motion, I want that as a condition.
You do that at a rezone level?
Yes,
Okay.
we have to do that now, because if we grant the rezone, the way I understand it, the concept plans are not binding, so they could come back with the rezone and say, hey, R19 allows footprint development.
Oh, got it.
We can put, that's why I'm saying I want that condition in there.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or questions from the commission? I'll go ahead and open this up for a motion.
I'll make a motion. Move to recommend approval to the city council the request to rezone from R110 low-density residential to R19 low-density residential on 16.47 acres at the future intersection of Riverside Drive and Brookshire Drive, southwest of Devonshire Park, as outlined in Exhibit 1 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated March 17th, 2022, with additional conditions that the minimum lot size will be 9,000 square feet there.
We have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
Could I interject?
Yes.
We're just recommending your motion that you recommended the city council that you add that condition as
Yes.
far as the development agreement, no footprint development.
Right, 9,000 square foot.
And I can clarify my motion to clarify that with the condition that there will be no footprint development.
All right. Yes, that sounds good. Second,
I second.
Commissioner Kilgore with a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And we'll give 1 minute for, congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll pause for one moment so that Commissioner Burns can come back.
That's why I asked about whether there was a traffic report.
Right.
Certainly, you'd never oppose something that's less density. Like when you talk about, hey, it's the river. It's like,
Do other than have police go out.
What is the temperature set to, by the way?
Right now it's 68, but it's 78 degrees.
Oh, well, hopefully we, okay. Right. The next item, item number 5, is a public hearing, Mount Saratoga Village Plan 1 Manger Amendment located approximately 550 North Mount Saratoga Boulevard. Edge Homes is applicant, and Kent will be presenting this one as well. Is the applicant here? You can come up and join us.
So the proposal is to allow a chain link fence or black vinyl coated chain link fence for a dog park. And the village plan allows that exception to our Title 19 if it goes before the Planning Commission and the City Council. So staff has looked at this. Sarah has looked at it in detail, and she sees that it could be a good thing and recommends approval.
All right. The applicant, could you state your name?
Sure. My name is Brandon Watson with Edge Homes, Draper, Utah. We had originally, when we proposed this, we were going to do wrought iron fence, just a little nicer. But as a small dog owner like myself, it's going to fit right through that, and off she goes. So we looked at other options, and essentially I think a black coated chain link fence is probably our best option for a dog park. So that's why we're proposing this fencing type.
Okay, thanks. This is a public hearing, so I'll open this up for public comment. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment. And I'm going to open this up for the Planning Commission to ask any questions, comments that they have. Commissioner Kilgore.
This is a question to the staff. So the code does not allow for the black chain link fence around the dog parks. And I was wondering what the city was expecting as far as what kind of fencing it would have for dog parks. I mean, iron fence, that's obviously one case, but that would just really create this kind of like a fortress type of feel. And is that really what the city wanted? If not, then what other ideas does the city have in not allowing the black chain link fence?
I'm guessing that dog parks weren't necessarily contemplated when we were approving this part of the Title 19. There's a general feeling that chain link isn't what we would like to have, but again, I think dog parks just seem to be a relatively new, development. They're becoming more and more popular, and it seems reasonable to have a chain link for dog parks. At least that's primarily what I see. But for the view of most people believe those black vinyl chain link fences are aesthetically appealing. So, but yeah, we need to go through the process for the development agreement, for the village plan to bring this before the Planning Commission and the City Council for approval for an exception from the Title 19.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then the applicant's proposing the chain link fence on two sides of two of the borders, I guess, of the area. But what's going on the other sides?
I believe we're proposing it here on the area that's designated, which would go all the way around it.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was north and south and not on the west.
No, yeah, all the way around, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. And then, so personally, I think it's fine. Even the nicest areas of the biggest cities have chain link, usually vinyl coated chain link fences, if not something else, around their dog parks. And I like the idea that it's actually visible and the air passes through. So that helps sometimes with smell issues and things like that. So I'm actually okay with it. And maybe recommend that the city consider that and maybe take a look at the code and maybe make a permitted or something when it comes to these kinds of uses. Maybe.
Correct. Just a clarification, the Title 19 does allow chain link for the keeping of animals, but it probably wasn't contemplated that the keeping of animals be a dog park.
Right. Right. Yeah, for residential, I think you could do that for like chicken coops and things like that too.
Scott.
I was just going to say, I think it was just the two sides that had vinyl fencing that was planned prior. So it's just was replacing the vinyl fencing because the vinyl fencing was there for like a barrier. But since the dog park's there, they're adding the chain link instead of the vinyl.
Commissioner McConkey and then Commissioner Ryan.
I have two questions. What's the anticipated or proposed fence height and link size on the?
So 6 feet is what we would propose as far as the height go, which I think is pretty standard for chain link fence. As far as the link size, I don't really know exact dimensions on it, whatever a typical chain link fence would have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the small stuff or the.
I don't think so. No, we wouldn't do anything.
4 inch and a 2 inch, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Commissioner Ryan.
I appreciate that. That was one of my questions, and also the question from Commissioner Kilgore as well. It wasn't quite clear to me if we were just doing the two sides or all of it, so I appreciate the clarification. The thing I just wanted to make sure that I understood, we're in a planned community here with Mount Saratoga, but this is a question for the city. This isn't approved for a public park, so this will be open to all residents?
My understanding is it would be open just for Mount Saratoga, but
so this is part of in our community plan. I think it's 8 or 9 acres here of all public property, all public parks. So yes, be open to the public.
So it'd be open for all citizens or all residents of the city?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And is there an HOA in this development?
There is, yeah, but it wouldn't, this isn't part of the master association.
So then who is responsible for the upkeep thereafter?
The city is, yeah.
And the city's aware of all of that?
Right. David just texted in and said this is one of the reasons why we have a community plan or a village plan to allow for special standards, and it will be a city park.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Barton.
Well, Commissioner Reed pretty much asked every question I had. However, I'm just wondering about the 6-foot fence. So that's not normal. I don't know. I mean, that seems pretty high for a dog park. Is it standard? Because I've been to lots of them in that high. Maybe I'm just going to the really crappy ones.
You're also going to see a 6-foot fence at the Alpine School District property line.
Okay.
So they're going to put one in regardless.
So we might as well just do
this-
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to, again, I've only been to a few. We go to the same ones and they're not that high, but that's great. And it was nothing to do with anything else. Just wondering kind of the idea behind that. But yeah, Commissioner Reed asked all my questions about, yeah, so I think that's all I have.
Kent.
So, yeah, staff, we've had quite the discussion of what height you need, at
Right.
at a dog park, because, larger dogs could, leap, I guess, lower fences. And just a clarification that, David believes that this will be a city park, so.
Sorry, Commissioner Ryan. I always mess up your.
Happens every day.
I know, right? You think I would have it by now? I don't.
Even think twice about it.
Commissioner Ryan, did you have?
Commissioner Bart actually sparked another, we had so many things today, I forgot the other question I had on this. Is there any concern liability-wise for the city with this abutting to a future school property, if I remember correctly, about, I'm no canine expert, but there are canines that can certainly jump 6 feet and tear after kids at recess or things of that nature. Is there any concern from the city in that regard?
That was one of the reasons that we proposed at least a 6-foot fence, because sometimes there's could be some agitation between the dogs or the elementary kids. So we definitely recommend a 6-foot.
That's probably guaranteed, yeah.
Okay.
That?
Go ahead.
I mean, if it helps, I understand the concern there. If we needed to pull that fence off the school property line, say 5-10 feet, just enough, at least you get some mowers or something in there, just so kids aren't sticking their hands through there and messing with dogs. We're fine to do that as well. That's a great point, so.
Commissioner Barton.
No, as I think about it more, over at Riverview Elementary School up in Harvest, so it's a horse pasture right there, and the kids love it. And of course, they're always there, and it was feeding the horses. I think they've tried to fix it so it's not always like that. But now that you bring that up, that's probably something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah. If I could,
Go ahead.
from my experience being around dog parks, usually the owners are right close by and attentive of where their dogs are, so I don't anticipate a lot of problems.
I don't believe that, to be honest with you, because we are dog people, and most of the time you have really good owners, but some of the time you do not. So I think that's a concern that maybe should be looked at a little. I don't know if it ends up that we need to do that or not, but maybe it's just that we can look at it, because we don't always have responsible dog owners, and dog parks are actually they like them because their dogs can run, and so it might be something to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Burns.
Is this the first dog park in the city? So what is the liability insurance like? Is this going to be a higher insurance the city carry?
I don't know.
And then do we have any idea of what the long-term maintenance costs are? Are they comparable to other general parks and general other areas, or is it a higher maintenance?
I would assume it'd be similar.
I think our city attorney wanted to make a comment.
Just to the insurance question, we are covered by the Utah Local Government's Trust Insurance, and so they insure a number of municipalities around the state that have dog parks, and so I'm sure we'll be working with them. I don't know that there's any extra insurance that we would need for having the dog park.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Ryan.
Actually, just had a question for Mr. Donaldson as well. So we're around your job is city attorney is obviously to help us mitigate risk, right, and assess risk. So with the discussion that we've had this evening regarding the border, we have a willing developer to possibly look at moving the spacing back just a little bit. Do you have and it's somewhat putting you on the spot, but do you have an idea or are you willing to work with the developer in further assessment for that? I think would alleviate some of my concern because I feel like there's options to mitigate that necessarily wouldn't either be damaging to the aesthetic of the park or what we're going to, and also being able to find that middle ground where we may help alleviate some safety concerns around the children.
I think definitely we are concerned about risk in the city attorney's office. And, as it was raised previously, now that, thinking about it intuitively, you can see that there's some danger there for a higher risk associated with injury. And I appreciate the developer's offer to help to mitigate that risk. And I'm sure that we will consider that. And I think that this is, if I remember, we're making a recommendation to the Planning Commission, or are we acting as the the City Council, or are we acting as the Land Use Authority on this matter?
We're making a recommendation. The City Council's a land use authority.
Right. And so I think you could recommend that to the City Council, that they consider that. So
I appreciate that. And just to echo your comments, I appreciate your comments as well, being able to work with us a little bit there, maybe look at that a little bit differently. So thank you.
Any other comments from the Planning Commission? I think it's great. I like the idea of the fence, and I think we kind of have a loophole in the code that allows this, but maybe we should probably spell it out better. I'm sure this will not be the only dog park we have in the city. Maybe we ought to add that to our list of code to be updated at some point in the future. I'll go ahead and open this up for a motion.
Find it.
This is Commissioner Ryan. So based upon the information and discussion we've had this evening, I move forward a recommendation for approval of the Village Plan 1 amendment to Quail Hill at Mount Saratoga with the findings and conditions of staff report, in addition to the recommendation that the developer work with the City Council on possibly backing off the fence line a little bit along the Alpine District border.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Anderson. Any question on the motion?
That was
Barton.
Oh, Barton. I'm looking at the wrong, Commissioner Barton with the second. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a good.
All right, so the next item is item number 6, public hearing Sunrise Cove General Plan Amendment from rural residential to low density residential and rezone from RA5 to R19, located approximately northwest corner Fairfield Boulevard and Fairfield Boulevard, Foothill Boulevard, sorry. And Morgan February is that applicant. Kent Page is presenting.
Thank you, Chair. So this is two requests, the first being a general plan amendment and the second being a rezone. So the request for the general plan amendment is to go from rural residential to low density residential, and the rezone is from RA5 to R19. And this is kind of the intersection of Fairfield Road and Foothill Boulevard. Here's a area map showing the existing general plan land use designations. And here is a city map showing the current zoning in the area. And the request is to rezone the entire parcel of 5.25 acres. Here's the concept plan, and then we have a blown up that you can see better the proposed concept with the development on the red, and the property that's outlined in blue is the future Mountain View corridor, which is 1.18 acres. Staff's recommendation would be that the Planning Commission recommend approval subject to the city entering into a development agreement specifying that the 1.18 acres be dedicated to the city, and also that there be a future connection, road connection to the west. That's a concern by staff.
Is the applicant here? Want to come up and join us? Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. My name is Austin Richards. I work with Alpine Homes.
Just give the city.
Yeah, Draper, Utah. Trying to remember the address.
That's fine. That works.
Sorry, brain fart.
Do you have anything you would like to add?
I would add, we've reviewed the site plan with the staff. The road to the west, that was new to us. I feel like we're not necessarily ready one way or the other to say yes or no on that one from a developer's perspective. Obviously, we're willing to work with the city on what we need to do. But being a condition, maybe we'd like to reserve that as something in the preliminary plat review, not necessarily a rezone review. But otherwise, yeah, that's the project. There's the R110 zoning up north of this, so I feel like R19 would be an appropriate low density housing option between there and the Lexington Green, which is much more dense. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions.
This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open up for public comment.
Hi, Sarah Merrill, 247 North 1000 West, Saratoga Springs. So I'm pretty close to this property. I'm in the RA5 zoning. Historically, I gathered from earlier comments that maybe some of you haven't been in this area long enough to know. But I can tell you right now that the Lexington Green, if you want to talk about a Whoops development, that was a Whoops development. And there's a reason that they took over 10 years to actually approve it and get it into moving, because they were given leniency with the density that was no longer agreed upon when the citizens voted for lower density. So I would counter that rather than R9, which allows for footprint zoning, which I learned tonight, that we would maybe consider R10 and or above, and that make sure that there's plenty of open space. Because what I see is that Chris Sorensen applied west of us for different zoning and was denied. And then I see 5 acres north of us that is 5 acres packed with like 16 homes, and I don't see any open space. So I see inconsistency, and I see maybe a little bit of favoritism there. I don't know. But I think R9 does not follow well with the RA5 that's right next to it. And I don't appreciate staff comments that I've received before stating, well, you're going to be gone one day anyway. What does it matter? We also need to address the traffic. Now that it connects up to Quail Hill on Fairfield Road, we have kids that are playing basketball on the homes on Fairfield Road, and I'm waiting for a ball to roll into that street and for kids to run into it. We have cars that are parking illegally on Fairfield Road where there are no parking signs, and then we have cars parking across the street well into the road, and you cannot get one vehicle past. You also see the congestion on 800 West. If you don't leave at the right time, you cannot get in and out of that area. I asked what the future was. About 2 years ago, I asked what the future was for how are we supposed to get east once Mountain View Corridor comes in or anything like that. Would they consider putting in a light? And I was told point blank that no, we will not do that, because this will be a major interchange one day. They still have not answered the question is how are we supposed to get east? And if you add more homes in there, you're just going to increase the congestion and you're not addressing the road. The road was a nice new road when the sewer was put in a few years ago. When Lexington Green came in and developed, they destroyed it. It is yet to be fixed. We've asked for it to be fixed. It was sufficient for the needs of the people that were up there. It was not sufficient for the construction equipment, and completely tore it up. We have pictures and videos of it. If you'd like to look at them, I'm sure we can pull them out for you. But I would recommend learning the history of the area and also taking into consideration feathering of your own zoning. And I wouldn't go any lower than R10. From my understanding, also the portion that is slated for Mountain View Corridor is not being purchased by Alpine Homes. It is being retained by the original owners because Alpine Homes did not want to deal with UDOT. And so they are making the original owners do that. And so I don't know how that plays into your consideration, but that's a little bit of the insight on that. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of that. No? So, thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay.
Mary Ellen Evans, 1126 West Fairfield Road. I'll agree a lot of the things that Sarah said. I won't repeat on those other than the fact that you're fast turning 800 or Foothill Boulevard into another Redwood Road. It's getting pretty bad. And even though you're planning an extension improvement as far as Marie Way over to Pony Express, that's only going to solve some of the problem between Pony Express and Harvest Hill Elementary. You have all of the elementary kids that are required to walk from Sunrise Meadows subdivision have to cross that road. We don't need more traffic on it. Also, you mentioned something about a road going to the west. Through which one of us? Yeah, that's all privately owned by other people. That is not part of this development. So that's not an option. And I'm sure that just deeding that road for Mountain View Corridor to the city is not an option unless the city wishes to purchase that ground. I would like to put my 2 cents worth that let's leave some of this agricultural open space where it's there. Yes, we get the questions. A lot of you are probably new. We've just been told, oh, we're just waiting for you guys to die and then your kids will subdivide it. Yes, we've only been here, my husband's been here over 70 years. I'm a newcomer, I've only been here about 56. But it's not what it used to be, and it's just really declining very, very, very fast. And the more development you add, the more homes you add, the more traffic you add, the worse this place is to live. So we still have farm ground, so that's why we're still here. But it's not pleasant to live in this city the way that it has been misplanned. As recently in a planned community, this is a little off the track maybe, called Flower Mound, Texas. Beautifully planned city. Every so often there's a 4-lane highway intersection. You can go anywhere you want to go without hitting any traffic because the roads were planned in advance of the construction. You talk about Mar Meadows, I have to put that one in here. Mar Meadows was in there long before any of your commercial establishments were even considered. They were there first. And you've put the commercial around them. Again, a lack of planning. I would really like to see a little bit more thought go into the planning of all of our developments in the city. Thank you.
My name is Aaron Evans, 1126 West Fairfield Road. You know, I hear a lot of things and you're approving a lot of things, but I don't hear you taking care of the traffic. And I think it's your fault. You know what your mayor told me? I'm a farmer, and I run up and down the Fairfield Road. He says, well, you just tick those cars and they won't park there anymore. It's like I told him, that makes me at fault. Unless the city's willing to take care of those type of instances, I can't do that. And I won't do it. But I will block the damn road. Because you're not taking into account the number of people that you're putting out here with no planning ahead to take care of them. All you got is a lot of congestion. Look at Redwood Road. How many people have been killed on Redwood Road? How many accidents daily are there on Redwood Road? You gentlemen and ladies have the responsibility to take and protect the citizens of Saratoga Springs. I don't think you're doing it. I don't think you're planning ahead. This city is poor at very well planning. They say, oh, the contractors have the responsibility. Put the roads in. I'm sorry. That's your responsibility, not the contractor's responsibility. You need to take and think about the people that are here. You're packing them in, as well as Eagle Mountain. You got no room for them. You got them nowhere to go. I had the privilege of being in Texas this winter, and a city that's approximately the same age and probably a little larger than Saratoga Springs called Flower Mound, west of Denton. And I'll tell you what, they've got major roads in there. Every mile there's a 4-lane road crisscrossing. There's not a traffic problem down there, but there sure is here. And you guys need to take care of that. And before you plan and change a lot of these zonings, you need to think about the traffic. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment at this time? I'll go ahead and close the public comment. And open this up for the Planning Commission for questions. Go ahead, Commissioner Kilgore.
Okay. Sorry, lost my place in my... Okay. So with this application, staff recommends a positive recommendation, even though it's not consistent with the land use designation. And I was wondering what the reasoning for the staff was in recommending it, even though it's not consistent.
I think one of the first reasons would be to see what the overall development, how it's been changing around this RA5 that's become more dense. Second reason could be with the planned Mountain View corridor, proximity to a major highway. It would be better to have a denser development closer to that highway than RA5. I think another reason could be if the city could enter into a development agreement with the property owner that the 1.1 acres be dedicated to the city, that could save taxpayers money and be easier on everyone, at least for the taxpayers, to acquire that property for the Mountain View corridor. Another reason could be if the developer is willing to line up the roads with the existing road to the south and then a connection road to the west. So we realize those are pretty high hurdles. So it's a recommendation, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a strong recommendation.
Okay, yeah, because I was actually, well, maybe not surprised, but the public comment that we received was something that I was also thinking about, in that in general, we've had a lot of public input in saying that we should try not to increase density in areas that have already been designated in one way or the other. And in a situation where it actually goes against our ordinance, it seems like sounds almost like the only reason why we want to consider it is because we're getting something for it. Putting more denser residential neighborhoods near a freeway, I see that happens a lot, but it only works if there's a good traffic flow. And so unless there's going to be like an off-ramp or an on-ramp to Mountain View corridor at that location, then it just makes things worse, as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I was wondering why the city was recommending it when it doesn't actually comply with our land use. And then secondly, the rezoning doesn't comply with the 20% resizing standard either. It looks like density is going to go up by 25% or more, but our rezoning standard requires that it's no more than 20%. So again, I realize this is a legislative process, It's not administrative. But even then, even with legislative processes, our city attorney in previous years had told us that we still had to have some way to tie it to the code, either because for safety reasons or one of the reasons that we can act on. And I don't really see that being the case here. So I'm just wondering how the staff justifies that we were able to disregard that standard in the code in order to increase the density by more than what the standard is.
I think those are all very good comments. I would just respond that there are almost always trade-offs or balancing that need to occur. We've had a discussion as staff about the overall traffic patterns and what we need to be doing in this area. And we realize that we're a little bit behind. So that's one of the reasons why we're proposing that there be a connection to the west. And then, of course, the dedication of the 1.1 acres to the city.
Yeah, so again, I understand all that about the planning part for the traffic, but how does that justify we go against the code?
Well, I don't know. That's of course a legislative decision because we have kind of the code, but then we have the overall pattern, what's occurred in this area, where we have higher density surrounding this RA5, where we have a need for more connectivity between the properties in this area, where we have a need for acquiring property for the Mountain View corridor.
So those things can't be done with a slightly lower density?
They could be. We just feel it's probably a better position to negotiate for those improvements for the public. But it's a subject to your opinion. And I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the planning staff's position and how to reconcile those issues. I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Barton.
Traffic in this area is already so bad, and I don't feel like that I guess maybe it's too early or too premature or something to approve higher density in this area. I remember when Thunder Ridge was built, like it's been an issue since it was built. I mean, I used to be very involved with the district, and that was a concern. And my kids didn't even go there, but it was a concern as parents of the district about their safety, and I feel like that's still a concern there, and that hasn't been addressed adequately with the district or the city. I love you both, but I'm just saying I don't feel like the area has been. We're not taking care of anything right there yet, and I don't feel like right now, until we know that things are going to happen for safety and for the traffic in that area, that maybe it's just too early for me. It's just some thoughts for me. So,
thank you, Commissioner Barton. Commissioner Ryan.
I just had a quick question for city staff as to the recommendation to R19 versus an R110. Was that proposed by those seeking to develop, or was that city initiated? I just would like a little bit of better background.
The request to R19 was from the applicant.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner McConkey.
I tend to have some similar thoughts as Commissioner Barton, that it seems a little premature, that there are some obvious concerns and some domino effects. It sounds like might create some difficulty. Recognizing at the same time that Saratoga Springs is in a unique position to have, I believe it's 5 state roads. Is that right? I think there's 5 state roads, or soon to be. And the city has no authority whatsoever to improve those roads, much to our frustration. And so we're very limited on how to deal with the traffic flow and have no authority whatsoever to be proactive in any way on those main roads, and we're simply at the mercy of the state. So unfortunately, the way that the state operates is somewhat putting out fires, there's limited funds, and they have an entire state. So it's just kind of what areas are in most need, and usually that means that there's difficult problem areas, traffic areas that then get the attention. I mean, those of us that have been here a long time, of course, have been through that multiple times. But I would tend to agree that it seems like that it might, going to a higher density, while it's not a lot of, how many lots are there? 12?
There's 12, yeah.
12. We're starting a ball rolling, I suppose. That might be difficult to, it almost feels like that there might be a little bit more planning ahead, maybe, of how to make this work without creating some other problems. But those are my thoughts. Oh, one other request is when staff provides the concept plans, just make sure that they're large enough and with enough clarity that we can read them.
Commissioner Ryan. Thank you, Commissioner McConkey.
I appreciate the comments. I had just two quick thoughts. Do we know, so the alignment that will be Mountain View Corridor, to my understanding, is it's going to largely follow Foothill Boulevard. Is that correct?
Yes.
Scott, do you know? That's correct. Doug?
It's pretty correct. There's a little bit of.
So do we know, with this 1 acre that's coming off the chunk of that, does that mean that an interchange of some sort?
No, there's a little section where it swerves over and kind of has a curve in that area. So.
Oh, so the alignment will swerve a little bit wider there. Is that why?
It does have a little bit of a leg to connect further down at a better angle. If Kent can pull it up on city map.
If you can see this screen, I don't know if you can see it, but
Yeah, okay. So we're just essentially jumping ahead of the curve of that wider swath.
Yeah.
Okay. I just generally speaking, it's, I appreciate the public comments this evening. Haven't been on the planning commission for some of those prior decisions, but have been in the city not 70 years or 56 years, but 12 years, and have seen a lot of changes. And that is, I moved here from a highly dense area in the East Coast, and I moved out here because there were cornfields, antelope, and all the other wonderful things that made our city great. And those things are rapidly changing, which we are all aware of, unfortunately, one way or another. Moving forward, I think we can strive for balance in our growth. I appreciate, again, here where this is technically low density. I consider that a win versus a high-density development. But I feel as if with the condition that was put on the developer, it seemed to me at least a bit of surprise based on your comments. And granted, that's not what we're doing here tonight in terms of the rezone, but moving forward, when you actually come forward with the concept plan, et cetera, for that west connection. It's also a little shocking to me to have a owner who sits west of that, if I was correct from your comments, ma'am, that you are also not aware of wherever that connection might connect to. I feel as if more discussion is needed, Mr. Chair. I'm not necessarily opposed to what we're doing here because I feel like getting it to a low density is the overall win with the balance that we're going to have to, the reality that we're going to have to face with the growth that is facing our city. But I feel as if maybe when we have our planning director back and other planning staff, we could have some discussion. So that's where I'm most comfortable, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Anderson.
I agree. I'd like to table this or postpone this for another session. I do appreciate the spirited comments from the public. I've probably been here the least amount of time, at least on this panel, in terms of my residence in the city. But I'm grateful to work with these good planning commissioners, and I think it's important that the public know that we are not your elected officials. So we are not your decision makers. We are the code applicators, if you will. So we look at the code and we give this good applicant due process and we say, do they meet and comply with code? And so we'll make a recommendation, but ultimately we're not the decision maker. So all that spirit that you've got bottled up, I'd make sure it gets shared with City Council. But it's certainly appreciated here. But yeah, I'm happy when the time comes to make a motion to table it.
Commissioner Kilgore.
So I guess my question is, what are we talking about doing as far as the motion goes? If we want to table it, we should have some specific things that we want brought back to us that we could actually consider. Or we could make a negative recommendation. We're only making a recommendation to the City Council, so we could make a negative recommendation. But if we do say we want to table this, then we have to have some kind of specific direction that we could give to the planning staff so that they know exactly what to give us. If there is no traffic study done, then there's not going to be any more information, things like that. So I'm wondering what.
Commissioner McConkey and then Commissioner Anderson.
I'll let Commissioner Anderson go first.
Commissioner Anderson.
I think there's a couple things. First is, it sounds like the applicant was surprised by the 1.1 acres. And I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe you can say you didn't know that was the 1.1 acres that they were going to ask.
To be deeded to or dedicated to the city?
Yeah. Did you?
Our past discussions have been to have that preserved through a development agreement, not necessarily a dedication. So we're still would have to work out how that would happen, if it could happen. But our thought as we talked to the planners was to preserve that space in a development agreement.
Okay.
Right. That doesn't help us make a decision, right?
Well, I think
it clarifies their position with that piece of property, but it doesn't really help us.
The other part I would say is this, that the applicant consider, while this is tabled, the R110, that the public is expressed and that some of the commission here has also expressed and perhaps R110. So it's saying obviously there may be some more discussion that needs to happen offline. It'd be nice to have the Director Stroud here. Continue that discussion offline on the 1.1 acres and ask the applicant in the meantime to reconsider R110. Is that enough? Or is that not?
I think in addition to that, in all reality, in my mind anyway, more information to have some impact study information, traffic flow, not just currently, but once Mountain View Corridor is extended through there and the on and off and pass under, over, through, whatever, to the other side, how the traffic's going to be impacted and what, really what the short-term and long-term impacts of rezoning this is going to be.
Okay.
Commissioner Burns rang in next. I wonder.
Sorry, can we just clarify? So with the R110, how many houses would be able to go into this development?
Can I make a few comments on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we have looked at doing R110 actually rather extensively. We could get the same quantity of units as the R19. It just really makes odd shaped lots that are really not that marketable, would put fence lines in weird places, but would still meet all of the city code. I should say code, all the code in terms of the design requirements, like the minimum frontage and that type of thing, setbacks. It would still meet all of that, but would just be odd. So that's why we were applying for the R19, because we could essentially build the same house, same product, just slightly smaller lots that are more marketable, more square, a little bit more normal. And then if I could make one more comment about the traffic, And some of our conversations with UDOT and others, it's our understanding that Fairfield Road would be eventually when that Mountain View corridor is put in. I don't believe, you guys can talk to UDOT, whatever, but in my research there, that road will end. That's why we are, I guess, trying to turn to the north, extend through to the north, not just a cul-de-sac, but then provide access to the future in the north there to be able to allow that road to end with allowable detention water into this property and things like that. Anyway, just some extra thoughts.
Commissioner Ryan.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the information there. And if it does stay R19, and as we talked about earlier, it's one of the changes we made, would you be comfortable with around what the chair proposed for that other designation in terms of the footprint discussion?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I don't know that we've ever done a development, with lots this size that we would do a footprint. It would always just be lot in a building.
So there's a possible additional condition there we could consider.
Absolutely.
Also, if we are moving towards continuance, which I still feel comfortable, I think there's enough action items. And one that would help me, it's necessarily touches upon this property, but also I think I've sensed from the comments this evening just to sort of, this is a problem area. And we've had a lot of discussions around this area within the last 6 months. Say, not necessarily this property, but the properties around it as well and what's going on. One thing that may help me, to Commissioner Kilgore's comment, is to have the city come back and give us a general, I know we have the general plan, we have lots of things in places, but to focus necessarily just into this area and the surrounding properties that we see here and what's zoned and currently not zoned and what discussions the city is aware of as to what may be happening, I think would help me as well, so that we're not just one-off placing into these various little neighborhoods and not necessarily having a bigger plan to have some cohesiveness to where all this growth is and how this growth is going to develop. And I realize the city can't look into the crystal ball and predict exactly, but I think a better background and or prognosis of what may be happening would be helpful for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner McConkey and then Commissioner.
I think that's a great comment, Commissioner Ryan. And we're in the process of redoing the general plan. I think that's some great feedback for the steering committee and for city council. Part of my question, I think, I was looking at the potentially proposed the development plan and noticed that one of the lots that looked like was going to be accessed off of Fairfield. But if that does become a dead end, then that pretty much answers my question and even my concern right there. I was just looking at lot one. I think lot one, but yeah, that's really all I want to say.
Commissioner Anderson. Thank you, Commissioner McConkey.
Like Commissioner Ryan said, we recognize that it's a problem spot, and it's been discussed on multiple occasions. What is worth noting is that problem spot, I submit, will get worse before it gets better when we connect Foothill, which we're breaking ground on this year. When we connect Foothill all the way down to Grandview up by the temple, it gets worse before it gets better. And so we don't know when Mountain View's gonna come. We'd all dream. Anyway, I just think that should be taken into consideration, that we are not out of the woods yet in this area. It's gonna get worse before it gets better. In the short term. In the long term, it'll probably be great. We hope.
Okay, so we're trying to bring this all together. Sounds like we have some kind of division on the Planning Commission as to what action we should take next, whether we should hold this up or let it go with a negative or positive recommendation. My feelings are I kind of the same as it was on the water or river walk on the R19. If we're okay with doing the 9,000 square feet lots, it gives me a little bit better comfort. One thing that I'm not real, I'm kind of iffy on is the whole, we're rezoning. Technically, this R19 zone is supposed to have a minimum of 5 acres, if I remember correctly. And we do have 5 acres, but we're kind of fudging it a little bit, and I'm uncomfortable with that part. Even though we're going to, it would technically get rezoned as R19, I'm really kind of uncomfortable with that aspect of it. My recommendation is, rather than hold this up, that we vote it up or down and move it on to the city council. That's my feelings. And with that, I will open up for a motion. And yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, so I
Kilgore.
I hope I didn't give my intent was not to say that I would prefer a negative. My intent was just to ask the question, what would be how would we, as a planning commission, benefit by tabling the issue in making our decision in the future? So that was what my question was, and I think the comments help with that. But my biggest concern is, what you brought up, Chair, is that I don't see information in the staff packet that justifies why we would disregard several sections of the code in order to approve this. That's my issue. And again, I know it's legislative. We have the authority to do so, to make it a recommendation, but at the same time, it has to be on solid ground, based on our city attorneys in the past, comments. There has to be something in the code that we can ground our overturning what's in the ordinance. And so I think that was my biggest concern, and that's why I would probably lean towards a negative recommendation, just because I don't see and even with additional clarification, I still don't know if that will necessarily justify the reasons why we have those restrictions in place, or those rather standards in place. And those were in my notes even before the public comments, because I just don't see the justification. I mean, I realize we're getting some land for it, but is that really a justification for the residents and the code that's supposed to protect them? So.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make the motion. Based on the plethora of concerns, both logistical and code justification for making the changes, just all of the concerns that have been expressed tonight, I move to recommend denial of the Sunrise Cove request with the conditions in the staff packet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
Sorry, what was the motion? Sorry.
Motion to deny.
Alternative two,
The motion was to table.
Not deny.
To deny, based on the concerns that have been expressed tonight, I would agree with Commissioner Kilgore, is that, in my opinion, that the number of concerns, both the impact, the immediate impact, the coming impact, as well as the question on being able to justify the change based on the city code, I would like to, at this point, move denial.
So we have a motion from Commissioner McConkey to deny. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner Burns. All in favor? Do we have a question on the motion?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So this perhaps is a question for staff or legal. What's the difference if we approve a denial at this juncture, then they come back with a different proposal at some future time, versus the continuance accomplishes the same thing possibly? I'm trying in my mind to find the distinction between a denial and a continuance.
If you recommend denial, it still goes to the city council, and the city council can disregard your recommendation and go ahead and approve it, or they can agree with your recommendation and deny it as well. If they deny it as well, then they can come back to the planning commission again with a new proposal.
Yeah, there's no reason why they can't come back with a new proposal that might, with consideration to the concerns that have been expressed tonight.
So in my mind, then the denial, essentially, we punt it.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's just as submitted. As submitted.
If I can finish real quick, which
All
I
right.
think is where that's fine. Like I guess be comfortable with that, or we can continue and do more homework on our part, and then I believe make a better informed decision, in my opinion. Just to kind of put my cards on the table. So I view that denial as just punting and saying, okay, you handle it or take care of it. You can decide one way or another. They may take it, they may not. If they don't, at some point, the applicant just comes back either way, if I understand that correctly,
Well, we do have a motion. Let's vote on it, and then we'll, however you want to vote, well, anybody that votes against the motion, I'll give them an opportunity to make a statement, which the city council does take into consideration, because I've heard them several times when we had denials, or no votes.
Well, I would like to comment though, because Commissioner Ryan said this, so I take it that by doing this, it means this, not necessarily. That's one way to look at it. Another way is for, like me, saying that it just doesn't justify disregarding the standards in the ordinance. So it's not really, I don't.
That's fair.
Because I really dislike punting to the
Yes.
city council, and I usually state that. This one, I just feel like, no, the way the staff packet reads, I don't care.
That's very fair.
That's another
Thank
way
you.
of looking at it.
Yep, thank you, Commissioner Kilgore.
Okay, so again, we got a motion for denial. We have a second. We have a motion from Commissioner,
I'll second.
and then we have a second from Commissioner Anderson, or Mr. Burns, Commissioner Burns.
Put her on the minutes.
Okay. All right,
He wants
so,
to take all the credit tonight for everything. I don't know, that's all.
yes, I'm sorry about that. All right, so all in favor of the motion to deny, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. So the motion passes for denial. Recommendation. All right, and the next item,
So, Mr. Chair, I think Fred turned up the heat and not the AC.
and we need to crack a window open.
Can we check and see if it's actually on cool and not?
So it is on cool. I'll check again. I think there must be something going on with the system. I also opened this door and that door to try to get some circulation through the chamber, but it was on cold. I'm a lawyer. I'm not allowed to lie. But it has gone up 2 degrees since I checked.
Oh. Well, I guess before we move on to the next item, do we need to take a break? We have 3 more items and then the minutes. I think let's take a 5-minute break.
Nikki, do you know what's going on? I know that it gets cooler now. Scott's an engineer. He should fix it. Can you fix it? Yeah, that's what I think. Got it here though. I can feel it. It's nice and.
It's nicer on the other side. If you leave the other door open, it's nicer over there.
Was that where? Oh, on your side. Yeah, no. Nikki, do we have a fan somewhere?
We should move to the other side. It's cooler over there. It's cooler on the other side at least an hour ago.
Because that's April 12th.
Should I know there's a fan downstairs in the utility area. Should I get a fan to get some air moving? No? It's okay? They said they're okay. Yeah. We think that the AC system isn't turned on for this area.
Well, it's Utah in the spring, so this happens everywhere, right? Because on Monday, the heat's gonna be back on, so it's never gonna work out right. Oh, no, we hope, yeah. Exactly.
He is.
You didn't turn off the recording, right?
Yeah, it's good stuff. But there's no hot mics either. Actually, for instance, oh, yeah. All right, we're going to convene the meeting at this time. This is a public hearing on updates to the City Code Title 19 Land Development, Chapters 19.02, 19.04, 19.09, 19.16, and 1918, city initiated. And this is being presented by Doug Meldrum, our Community Development Director.
Economic Development Director, I don't want to get in trouble, so.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm reading what's on there, not what you actually are.
So section 1902 to add, well, as you remember, we met last November, we talked about this and we talked about how the zone wasn't quite working the way we had planned. And so these are changes that we are proposing. And you've already seen this once in a work session. So I don't mean to beat on this, but let me just suggest the changes that we've been instructed to make. In 1902, adding services to recreation, office, warehouse, flex definition, adding requirements for each tenant space to include a minimum of 10% of the floor area for uses other than warehousing, and clarifications to the retail big box and retail sales. In 19.04, clarifications of the heavy commercial proposed intent, adjusted proposed language for rear setback to match the RC zone, added exceptions to allow the big box and office buildings to be any size in the heavy commercial zone, struck auto repair, auto sales, and light industrial manufacturing from the use table for the heavy commercial zone. And in 1909, added clarifications to the office warehouse flex parking. In 1916, added requirements to the office warehouse flex definition to the site standards so that they don't get missed. And 19.18, no changes in that section. So we've made the changes. You can see in the edited document or in the packet that you have the changes that were made. And so that's what we're bringing back to you for review.
Okay, thank you, Doug. This is a public hearing, and so we're going to open this up for any comments that the public may have in regards to these code changes. I'll go ahead and close public hearing as there is no one to make comment. And I'll turn this over to the commission for comments. Commissioner McConkey, did you? Oh, Commissioner Ryan.
Oh, please, go ahead.
You rang first. You got it.
For whom the bell tolls. All right, I just wanted to say on record, thanks to the staff for working on this often tedious work. And I know we had the work session, we offered numerous changes, which look like a lot of them were incorporated, if not all of them. And I feel pretty good about where things stand right now, and just wanted to say thank you openly and publicly to city staff for their work on this.
I think the thanks go to Sarah Carroll. She's the author of this. So,
Commissioner McConkey.
And we're fortunate to have all of the planning staff. I did have a couple questions. I echo Commissioner Ryan. A couple of questions on the office warehouse flex definition. I had a couple questions in my mind. One is I'm not sure what service use means. Is that a common term?
It is a common term. There was some discussion on that point, and we felt like a service use is kind of self-defined. It's used in other ordinances, so we didn't specify, or we didn't extend, what am I trying to say? We didn't add any additional to that in fear of confusing the issue. So
Okay.
yeah, we specifically talked about
So
that.
that then would fall into really the interpretation of the planning director ultimately.
Right.
Correct? And if someone says, yes, it's service use, he would be the authority of.
Right.
Okay. I thank you for that. The 10%, I like it. I think that it feels much better and it makes much more sense to achieve what we were talking about. In that 10%, are we imagining that 10% of each tenant space will be finished as office space or something else?
That's the intent, yes.
Okay.
Or sales space. It depends on the type.
Or sales.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, I go to, best case scenario, worst case scenario, always. If a tenant, just looking at the definition and also 19.6.81 for building standards, if a tenant comes and says, well, I'm not doing anything with this open warehouse look, but I'm going to do my sales on this 10% and all my storage and whatever work on the other 10%, is that, I've in my my mind, I feel like what we have written here might allow for that, and they may have a good argument. And wondering if does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and that's always the gamble you play, because you might lease this, you might approve it with a specific lease in mind, and then third generation down the road, that could change, So we want to keep this specific to the current zone, the heavy commercial zone, so that it doesn't change too much. And I think you placed it really well when you said best case, worst case scenario. And we hope we're covering both ends of that.
Right. So on one tenant space, for example, do we need to specify that it needs to be finished?
I don't know.
I'm just asking the question.
So I wouldn't say.
Or does that really
typically
not make any difference as long as they're using it for that?
Yeah, good point. Good point. I don't know the answer to that. It seems to me that would be a general use based on the lease. If they're small enough spaces, they're going to require some sort of office or managerial space for the warehouse in the back. It'll be mostly used for office space. And when we talked about it in November, I think we used a couple of sites that, as an example. And I went back through those 2 sites last week and noticed that there weren't anything that was just warehouse. It was mostly office use with some storage in the back for products that they specifically use, but it was mostly for sales, retail sales, and office use. So,
okay,
I guess I was comfortable with the direction that it was.
That sounds good to me. Thank you. Retail sales, just a clarification between the 30% max stock area and 15% minimum customer access area. I'm guessing that 20% difference allows for like break room, office, and other employee-only areas. Is that correct? Okay. And then I think my final question was on the fine print note number 1 in 1904.10, the table. If I can get there. And this has to do with the 80,000 square foot maximum building size for every 20 contiguous acres. Just trying to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve here. Who am I going to talk to about this one? Is that?
Go ahead. I'm trying to find where you're referencing. Are you talking about the table on 1904.10?
Correct.
I'm seeing the only change made there was 30-foot height of the building, whichever is greater when adjacent to a residential zone.
All right. So if you go to the bottom of the table.
Oh, okay.
On the next page, there's
the 3.
Fine print note 1 is what my question is there. And I don't know if you can answer this, maybe, hopefully. If the intent of this, what we're trying to do here in regards to the 20 contiguous acres, are we trying to prevent, say, 2 80,000 square foot buildings from being right next to each other? And we want them separated by 20 acres?
Well, no, what we're talking about is when we originally had proposals for this type of use, some of them were pretty small, with a few acres, with 300,000 square foot building, for example. What we're trying to say is you've got to have, it's scale, it's a matter of scale. So if you have a larger scale, then we want to restrict the size of the buildings in that area. So it's a restriction there. We don't want to see these large buildings on a larger lot, like you see maybe on the north end of the city in Lehigh with those 2 new buildings. Those are, I think, 100,000 square feet.
Right, okay. So are we wanting, I mean, really, we're talking anything more than 50,000 square feet up to 80,000 square feet, correct?
Right.
Are we wanting that 40 contiguous acres and that building can be anywhere on that lot? And then a lot adjacent to that, they can do the same thing?
Yeah,
They can have like no separation or some, or just kind of
the separation
creating that.
would fall in the setbacks here. So that's the only requirement. there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I think that makes a lot more sense to me. I was having a hard time. I'm going to read this for a second.
Is there 80 acres that somebody could come out and buy, put two 80,000 square foot buildings on it?
We have a lot of land. It's possible. Probable? No, it's not probable.
So I think part of what my concern was is the term within the same development. So you can have two separate developments. And if they're not in the same development.
Okay, good point.
That was part of was driving my concern is, and wondering what it is that we're trying to achieve. If we're trying to achieve the separation, then maybe it doesn't make any difference whether it's one or more developments. We just want that 20 acres between buildings. That's really where my questions came up, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So they could take a piece of property and buy the adjacent piece and have the two large buildings literally right next to each other. That's what your concern is.
Well, that was my question. What I was trying to understand what staff's thinking was there, because you can have, the two buildings right here, and then you have 20 acres this way and 20 acres this way.
Yeah, again, the probability.
That makes any difference.
Probability of that's really low, but yeah, I see your point. So we can address that if that helps.
What's that?
We can address that in the code if that helps.
I think that would be great. I don't have a lot of opinion on the matter.
Okay.
Myself, I was just feeling a little bit of confusion as to what exactly our intent was going to be regarding that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner, how would you suggest that would be the wording you would use to clarify that?
I started coming up with some wording, but I couldn't because I wasn't sure. I wanted to understand what the intent was on the separation. One possibility, it was an incomplete thought, but one reading something like one building greater than 50,000 square feet but not exceeding 80,000 square feet is permitted maybe anywhere on a 20 contiguous acres, provided such buildings. And anyway, I didn't even finish my sentence apparently. So
are you referring to section 1 on 1904? Hang on, let me get the section. It's at the end of the
still
table.
in that fine print note 1.
Yeah, okay. One building of 80,000 square feet maximum is permitted for every 20 contiguous acres within the same development. You're concerned about a separate development adjacent to it with another.
But would it make any difference what development they're in?
No, I don't think it will.
Because if it's 20 acres.
Yeah, it's
building
same.
If you're allowed to put a building anywhere, respective of the setbacks, it wouldn't make a difference what development they're in.
Yeah.
Would it?
So that's the big question is if we talk developments, then as written, you can put that building anywhere.
We're just trying to restrict the size of the buildings to 80 square feet or 80,000 square feet. And that number 1 does that. So what it does is even if you have another parcel next to it, it still can't exceed that number.
Yeah, they just have to follow the setback. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay. The only recommendation or suggestion I might make is to add some verbiage. One building greater than 50,000 square feet, but no greater than 80,000 square feet. So it kind of creates a parameter.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. So what let me
Does
just
that make
understand you
sense?
correctly. You could have two 50,000 square foot buildings next to each other on separate parcels, maybe a separate development.
Because they would comply with the city ordinance and not apply the exception, the fine print note,
Yeah,
which I'm looking at as an exception.
yeah.
So
So what you're saying is maybe proximity within a quarter mile of each other or something like that?
So the city, as of right now, the maximum building footprint size in the HC zone is 50,000 square feet. But fine print note 1 says, but you can have it be greater than, right now, it says you can do an 80,000 square foot. If I get a little technical, so I only have an option of going up to 50,000 or jumping all the way to 80,000.
So it's covering that. It's using an example, and the example is, i.e., 40 contiguous acres required for 2 buildings that are 80,000 square feet maximum. So they've allowed for that in the ordinance there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kilgore?
Yeah, so I had a question about the occupancy permits. If a tenant changes, then does a new occupancy permit have to be issued for that building, or is it per tenant? Or is it, once it's been issued for that building, it's okay?
It's for use.
It's
If they change the use, then the use has got to be changed.
Okay, so not just the tenant. So if a particular tenant then decides that they're not going to use a part of their building space, and it's not going to be finished, but they still meet the code for all the other areas, and then we'd still issue them a permit because it's still safe.
Yeah.
And they're still within allowance, right? So
Yeah.
okay.
A great example for that is just right behind us here. You had a grocery store, it used to be a grocery store. Before they could change it to Vasa, the use had to be changed. And they've applied and we're in the process of that, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Maybe we're completed with that process, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But that had to be done.
Yeah, because it's the first question that Commissioner McConkey had, and I was just wondering, well, if we could issue, I mean, the city, regardless of whether they meet the code on their applications, the city is still going to have a occupancy check, and to make sure that that it's safe and meets code and all that other stuff too. So there's that still in there, even if the tenant decides not to use the entire space.
So part of the certificate of occupancy includes a fire permit, and that's all, it's all inspected, and that inspection's complete, both for code and safety, before a certificate of occupancy is issued.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? All right, I will open this up for a motion.
So Commissioner Ryan, based on the evidence and explanations received today, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendment to Title 19, Chapters 1902, 1904, 1909, 1916, and 1918 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated March 24th, 2022.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Barton. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is a business item, University Federal Credit Union, UFCU, site plan located at 213 West Crossroads Boulevard, Shane Sanders applicant, and just presented by Kent Page. Is the applicant here? They can come up and join us if they would like.
So I'm filling in the best I can for Planning Director David Stroud. So,
sorry, we have a comment from our attorney. Did I miss you?
Oh, that was just earlier. I was just going to address, there is no gap. If a lot is, or if a development is larger than 20 acres, they can put anything up to 80,000 acres on there. So that was all I was going to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Kent.
so this is in the RC zone, and the city council approved this zone as long as the uses be a business park. So here's the location just west of us. I guess this used to be called kind of the turf farm. It's right along Crossroads. And here is the site plan. And the landscape plan. And elevations. And lighting. There's a few technical issues with the lighting that staff believes we can work through those with the applicant. So David recommends approval with these findings and these conditions as set forth in your staff report.
Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation? Or were you done, Kent? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Would you like to add? First, state your name for the record.
Okay. Shane Sanders, Sanders and Associate Architects, here representing U First Credit Union. They are located or based in Salt Lake Valley. And I have Dan Slaughter here with me from the credit union. The credit union is proposing a 3,700 square foot branch at this location. They have a 2-lane drive up with ITMs, and I guess an ITM, the only difference between an ITM and an ATM is ITMs have a live teller from a remote location that can communicate with the member that comes to that drive-through. And there's 2 lanes for that. Yeah, I am open to questions.
Okay. I'll go ahead and open this up to the commission for question and comments. Commissioner Kilgore.
On in the staff packet, we have a couple of the clear site triangle. Looks like at least at the time of the staff packet, it did not comply. And I was just wondering if that's something that's going to be or has been addressed. I could actually.
I know we had resubmitted addressing the questions, and somehow David didn't see that packet. He looked at our original one. So I know most of these comments have been addressed, and we clarified that with David before the meeting. He had looked at the wrong resubmittal. So I know we've addressed a lot of these. We have identified the clear triangle on the site plan. We're not sure if there's still a concern, if the tree, there's a tree kind of in that upper triangle corner. Yeah, that plan shows that triangle identified. This is the older plan because we added some trees that was requested by planning. And there's a tree in the top corner of that triangle. We don't know if that's the concern. But we have that clear triangle there.
Okay. I apologize because the staff packet doesn't go into details as to what did not comply. It just says clear site triangles must be followed and then does not comply. It doesn't give any other details. So I just wondering if that's something that was addressed. Yeah.
Yeah, David just texted in and said that it does comply.
It does. Okay. Terrific. And then pages 16. Well, sorry, that's the pages in the staff packet, but. They are, and there's no paging on the, 19.11 lighting. There are several can complies and redlined. I'm just wondering if, I think you brought up the issue about lighting, and just wondering, is that something that the applicant will be able to take care of as well, if you haven't already done so?
Yeah, I think we've addressed all of this in the resubmittal. I guess it's just a matter of getting David's approval. If there's anything we need to adjust, we're
yeah, I
happy
believe
to do that.
David thought these were minor enough that we could go ahead and approve it and just work on these details, a few details later on with approval.
Okay. Yeah, I do just want to ask, because this is an administrative process and we have to make sure that you comply with the.
Sure. Yes.
But if you're willing and able, then that's not an issue. And that's what I just want to ask.
Absolutely.
And also, because it is an administrative
process, I always like to ask, just to get it on the record, that you're willing to comply with the conditions in the staff packet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So David just texted in and said that they have been addressed.
Great. All right. Makes it easy. And let me make sure I don't have anything else.
Terrific. That's it for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Barton, did you have some comments?
Yeah, it's nothing really that big, except this is the last credit union we've been waiting for, so I'm really excited about it. It's where my kids bank or whatever, and so really excited about this one. Just a side note.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Ryan.
Just a quick question. Ever on the learning curve for city staff as we assume these roles, we were given here some specs and cross sections for pavements, and I'm just wondering, when it's the private owner, the city has very rigorous, what I would say, specifications, very good specifications. We have obviously private owner, private parking lot. Does the city ever offer input or overrule and/or make stipulations around specs that are provided here versus specs the city would like to see?
We're kind of limited to what's on the site plan when it's private. If it's a concern, we would definitely bring up our thoughts on it, but we're definitely limited to what we can do within the site plan itself.
Okay, thanks. I just kind of wanted some clarification on how that relationship works when it is private in its site plan, and I'm sure the city offers input back and forth, but just wanted to understand how that works.
Yeah, a lot of the infrastructure, unless it's city-owned, we don't have a whole lot of input to it. But if it is a big concern, we definitely do communicate that.
So perhaps the applicant then is the 3-inch asphalt paving, is that standard for your other projects that you've done with the credit union across the state?
Yes, for standard vehicles, that is correct. And we do concrete paving at the drive-through, just for durability, where they're stopping there.
Yeah. That's not what he meant to say, but yeah. The reverse is true, actually, but no, and again, I was just, it's correct, the 3-inch thick pavement for regular traffic, mom and pop running through the drive-through or whatnot, but I just worried as well about the construction equipment during the process, at what time, the paving takes place, and then how much more construction equipment is on top of that 3 inches. That's probably not sufficient, so just, best interest as an owner, something to think about in regards to the durability of the asphalt pavement.
Okay.
Is that all you had, Commissioner Ryan?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Anderson?
Oh, what was I going to ask?
I don't know. What were you going to ask?
I blame the heat. The only thing worse than being 9th on the agenda is being 9th on the agenda in a hot room. I can't remember. It looks good, though. Product looks good. And thanks for having all those items completed or complying. Makes our job easy, so thanks.
Great name change, by the way. I'm excited about that as well. Don't know if anybody noticed that, but it's brand new name change, so that's fun. Much better.
Commissioner McConkey.
Federal credit.
If I can interject a comment in regards to Commissioner Ryan's concerns, is it, I would assume that it's reasonable and could be doable to have some sort of standard for commercial paving and durability requirements. Maybe not for maintenance, that'd be impossibly, but for the sake of avoiding dilapidation and some of those kinds of characteristics that we prefer not to have. My first thought, of course, goes to fire trucks. You're not going to get a fire truck through the ITM, of course, but of course that's concrete anyway. But anyway, I think that would seem reasonable unless our good legal team sees otherwise. I think considering if the city council considered some durability standards and so forth for commercial parking lots and drive-throughs, I think that would be good. That's all
Commissioner Ryan.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the owner, this is their piece of property, I guess it's their prerogative, right, in terms of that. And I think we would probably run into trouble with city mandates in that regard. That's why I was just wondering just generally how the relationship functions. And I would think that from time to time, obviously a very sophisticated owner, very sophisticated design team, they understand what they're doing in that regard. I just wondered what the back and forth was between city, because as a city, with the things the city owns, the Saratoga Springs specs are very impressive, like top of the line across the state, right? They do a good job, the engineering team and the public works team there. I just wondering if they ever offer input into, like, if you're looking through this and you go, oh, wait a second, like that cross section looks a little bit different or doesn't look quite right, you know, what that official or unofficial exchange process looks like. I just hope that there's communication in that regard, because it does, I think, to your overall point, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Commissioner McConkey, but it does add to the overall feel of the city, right? If we drive into like just the parking lot right here at Smith's, right, that has been neglected for some time, or, you know, other areas where you want it to look fresh and clean and good and those kind of things, I guess is maybe what you're kind of going towards.
Yeah, I mean, the city. My God, thanks. The city requires hard surface parking and driving and so forth. I think meeting a minimum standard, at least, is reasonable. I think for the good of the public and for the both for maintaining, for reasonable maintenance and for functionality.
Right.
That's all.
Okay, is that all you had, Commissioner Ryan?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, so I worked at a...
Well, I would just say what we typically do is hire a geotechnical engineer. We do borings of that soil, and then they come back with a recommendation on that pavement section. And that's what we've done here. So this section is designed based on the soil on that site. And I've seen it go down. We're at a 3-inch section on the asphalt, 10-inch on our road base. This is heavier than I've seen. We've gone down to 2.5 and 8 on the road base.
Scott.
Yeah, I'll just say on our local roadways, we're at a 3/8 in general, as long as the CBR is at 7 or above. So I'm not sure on the CBR on this one, but it sounds pretty reasonable to the...
Okay. I was going to make a comment. I worked at a credit union and we put in several branches and they put the asphalt in very last after all the heavy construction work was done, and they wouldn't let us park on it until after the open house. So anyway, there's that. I will go ahead and open this up for a motion.
I move to approve the proposed site plan of University Federal Credit Union at 213 West Crossroads Boulevard in the RC zone with the findings and conditions in the staff packet.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore and a second from Commissioner Ryan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 9, business item D2D preliminary plat and site plan located at Aspen Hills Boulevard and Redwood Road. Michael Molman as applicant, would be presented by Kent Page.
Thank you, Chair. So I apologize, I got my projects mixed up. This application is in the RC zone, but the City Council made the provision that the business park zone uses apply for this zone. It wasn't for the U-First Credit Union. So this is just up the Redwood Road. You can see kind of the area plan off of Aspen Hills Boulevard. And here is the preliminary plat and the site plan. We've made provisions to connect to the property to the south. And then we have the site triangles that have been taken care of going on and off of Aspen Hills Boulevard. Here's the landscape plan and the elevations, and the lighting and enclosures. So the recommendation from staff is for the Planning Commission to recommend approval to the City Council for the requested preliminary plat and approval with conditions for the site plan with the findings and conditions below.
Okay, it doesn't look like there's an applicant here this evening for this one, right?
Nope.
Okay. I'll go ahead and open this up to the Planning Commission for comments and questions. Commissioner Kilgore.
So if it's the Mike Muehlman I know, then it's too bad that he's not here because I'd like to say hi to him. He was the business planner for the house that we built, our current house, when he was working for Ezra Elite Design and Build and Design. So I miss him, but and I don't know how many of these questions can be answered by staff, but it's just mostly what's in the staff packet, really, as far as compliance and not compliance. So first question I have is about fencing. I wonder if the applicant has come back with, there were a couple of checks that were can complies instead of complies, and I was just wondering if that's something that's been addressed already or discussed. No, we don't know.
We'll see if David can answer that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay. There's a lag. Well, then while we're at it, also red lines for lighting. There were some red lines, and a couple of them said that this was the second time you had asked them to respond to that. Also for the vegetative buffer around utility boxes. I mean, these are all really minor, but still, this is administrative, so that's why I'm asking. And then the parapet height. I guess there's some question about how high the parapet is. Also, looks like the photometrics were in spec with the initial submission, but then with the second submission or later submission, the photometrics were out of spec with the code. So just wondering if that was just an error or is that something that has to be corrected?
Okay, we have some responses from David. Wonders of technology. So
comments via, or not Commissioner, Director comments via text.
So he responds that the fencing is to work with Western Hills developers, and the red lines are addressed.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make a comment. I really do like the external look of the Prex office building as shown in the rendering, because I'm actually for modern buildings, and I do think there's precedence in the city for that kind of style, despite what some residents say. So I thought that it just really looks good. It's probably why he was working on the company that built our house.
So David responds that a late set of plans came in and the parapet is noted.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I guess I know that some of the fencing issues had to do with negotiating with the other tenant or the neighbor, I guess. And I'm just wondering if they had that they had agreed to go ahead and do that with the Western Hills builder. Yeah.
So the minor red lines to be conditional with staff's approval, did not want to hold up commercial. We can work with the applicant.
Okay. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Barton.
Do we know, I mean, at this point, do they have any idea who's coming in there? Is it just, I mean, I know it's office buildings or anything like that, but I don't know if that was.
I don't remember hearing that, but maybe David knows.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all. So if he gets back, great, then no worries though.
Commissioner Ryan.
I just had a quick, I wanted to say I appreciate what been brought here by the applicant. I think it's good and nice little use. And I was wondering though, because we had sort of a trending with some of these applications of late with the lighting. And I'm wondering if the staff has any background. I know supply chain are challenges in a lot of different areas and things we necessarily 2 years ago would not have considered with trouble with getting. So I just wondered if the staff had any additional background and if that's where challenges are coming from or just that paying attention to what we're asking of them.
Okay, the first document will be the name of the site plan, which is D2D. It will be their real estate developers, and that'll be their offices. And Western Hills will determine the fence as they came in first.
Oh, regarding the fencing?
Yeah.
Scott had rang in for a comment, sorry.
I was just going to say it's the D2D real estate, so.
Oh, okay.
So where does that put the fencing negotiation then?
He says, yes, there's supply chain problems for the fencing.
Yeah, I was asking the supply chain around the lights, which sounds as like he's confirming that there are some challenges around that, which may be why we're getting some additional red lines.
Yeah.
But then I would be more interested on the negotiation than on the fence, because I did feel like that was probably the biggest thing.
So he responds that example, the crossing had this issue and used temporary lights until stock and available.
Okay. And then as he responded on the fence, this is a terribly efficient way that we're communicating. Must be on a beach or like a golf course or something. Hopefully he's having a good time.
There's a planning conference this week, right?
Yes, there.
In Kanab, all right.
Uh-huh.
So he's hiking in the Red Rocks, right? Wandering around on top of the sands. So it's okay, I guess, and if the rest of the commission is comfortable with that, but I guess we do need to be cognizant that there's not necessarily a fence dispute.
Is that all you had, Commissioner Rain?
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I know that wasn't very efficient on my part, but just some things on my mind.
Thanks. Any other comments from the commission? And if David responds, we'll let him respond.
So it'll be a uniform fence style to match. It should be a condition of approval that the fence style will match.
The only comment that I had was on the parking being 125% over. I'm okay with the overage. It seems like we're having, this is the second applicant that actually it's the third applicant that I can think of that wanted to put in more parking than we allowed, and we only allow them up to 25%. Maybe we should bump that up to 30 or 40. One of the things that we did on another applicant earlier on was just had them pave it, but then not stripe it. So the parking was still there. It just technically met the code. But that's another idea. But I'm thinking, however, though, we probably ought to look at maybe allowing them, especially with the restaurants who are saying that with curbside pickup, they're finding that they need additional parking spots. Maybe allow more, change our code and be more flexible to go up, but not down. We've been burned on the down. Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, so along those lines, so I could understand why we have a minimum for parking. Why do we have a max for their property? Just wonder if just so that we don't have a sea of asphalt. Is that? I mean, we're going to have a sea of asphalt.
Right. I guess the mentality is that how often do we need to use all the parking stalls? You know, it used to be like the day after Thanksgiving, but majority of times of the year there's plenty of parking, and there's truly no free parking. That's valuable space, and there's maintenance costs and drainage issues. So that's kind of the overall thought of having maximum parking.
Commissioner McConkey.
Kind of an interesting dynamic because while we're talking about the increasing the maximum parking at the same time, in some areas of the city, we're trying to, based on the current plan, trying to reduce the parking and encourage more walkability. And so in any kind of increase of parking, I think that it would, if we did that, it would need to be in geographic areas, whereas in certain geographic areas it would be reduced parking, if that makes sense.
So, excuse me, I'm trying to interpret his text messages, but David is saying that parking is not over, so I assume he means that it's not over what we require.
Oh, I thought it said it was 125% over. I thought that's what.
Well,
He says
maybe it
it's-
means that we're still negotiating, but I'm just
Oh.
asking that.
Oh, okay.
my question.
That's what he means by it's not over. It's more yet to come.
He'll respond.
Well, I guess about the maximum, if it's the property owner's property, whether they stripe it or asphalt or not, people are still going to have to walk the entire distance of the property to get to the next building. So I don't know if that's why if the buildings are clustered closer together, then people don't have to walk as far. But if you're going to have to walk like half a mile just to get to the building, it's still going to be not necessarily walkable, whether there's parking there or not.
David responds that the parking meets the code.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? I'll go ahead and open this up for a motion.
So this is a two-part motion or two motions? Right, because we have this.
There was the preliminary plat and the
site plan.
There's one together in the packet.
Yeah.
But they do both things.
So the motion has two parts then?
Yeah, so.
Yep. Okay.
Mr. Commissioner Ryan, I can make the motion. I move to recommend approval to the City Council, the request of the preliminary plat approval of the D2D subdivision at Aspen Hills Boulevard and Redwood Road, and approve with conditions, including the uniformity of the fence as discussed this evening, the D2D site plan in the RC zone with the findings and conditions also in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan and a second from Commissioner Anderson. Do we have a question on the motion?
Yeah, I have a question. So if we,
Go ahead.
Two-part motion, how do you vote if you don't want one of them?
The motion was two.
Well, where we've had the motion, if there's any part that was, that we don't agree with, then you vote against it, you can do that, and we can do it, well,
Separate.
if enough people oppose, then we can redo the,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
guess
we'd have the
I
same
mean,
outcome either way.
I'm asking a rhetorical question because I don't oppose, but I guess just for future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. Approval of minutes. Anyone have any changes they want to submit that have not been already submitted? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for March 10th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the Planning Commission minutes for Thursday, March 10th, 2022.
We have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Ryan. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes. Okay, commission comments. Go ahead, Commissioner Kilgore.
I just want to make a comment. I think it just depends on where you live in the city. We had some public comment tonight talking about how our city is poorly planned when it comes to traffic, or we didn't do our jobs, or some part of the city didn't do its job. I don't disagree that depending on where you live and such, but I've lived in the city for 22 years. And for where I live, the traffic has gotten more crowded, but access to freeways, access to places has gotten just so much better. So I don't agree necessarily that the city did not plan well. In fact, I think for Utah City, it's done as good as it could. There are roads, as it was brought out, that we don't have any control over, like with UDOT. And Utah is one of the states where the Department of Transportation decides to do something once there is a problem, as opposed to some states where they must have tons of money where they will build the freeway even before there's a problem. I know where I lived in California as a kid, they built 6-lane freeways even before there was anybody on there. And it took about 10 years before it got packed. Now that was when California had money. They don't do that anymore. And so I think Utah is just being maybe fiscally conservative in a good way. Maybe not, I don't know. But there's different arguments, and not, Texas doesn't necessarily do things better just because they build freeways before it's needed. And Utah doesn't necessarily do it better either. I think it just depends on your experience. Yeah, traffic is always a problem, and there's a lot more traffic, and every time I curse it, I also think that at least I can now get to the freeway within about 10, 15 minutes, as opposed to 25 minutes when we didn't have all the accesses that we have today. So I just wanted to bring out that I don't think, there were some decisions made in the past because we didn't know any better, didn't realize how big we're going to grow and everything. But again, that was maybe made in the best, with the best knowledge at the time. Sometimes it wasn't always. But again, I don't think that especially today, our planning staff is doing a poor job in planning the roads that we do have control over. So at least from my perspective, and not everyone will agree. And again, I totally understand, depends on where you live. But just because it gets more crowded, that's not the city's fault. That is something that, especially in Utah, where property owners have certain rights and we don't have limits to growth, like in some states, we have those such laws. So if you don't like that, then it's not about our city, it's about the representatives that you choose for Congress, for state Congress. So I think, anyway, I just wanted to make that comment that I don't think it's a mess necessarily.
Yeah, can I?
Kent, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it's always a trade-off because, have communities that say, hey, we want more police protection and fire protection. And they say, well, where are we going to get the money? Well, we need more commercial. Okay, well, we need more commercial, we need more rooftops. So that's how it works.
Yeah. I agree, though. I've been here for 18 years, and so I've been here for very long as well. And I remember when we all got stuck either coming home or trying to get out because all we had was Lehigh Main Street. I mean, that was...
There's a cow on it.
Yeah, right. No, that's the thing, right? And there's a big snowstorm and you can't go anywhere because of it and stuff like that. So I feel like we've done massive improvements. I mean, Nikki, I think, has been here as long as I have, right? And she remembers that because we were both at Harvest Elementary at that time. And that's where our kids all went and nobody could leave, right? And so I think we've become a really far way for a new city. And I think we've done a lot of good stuff. And there is definitely room for improvement. There always is. But I feel like as the city, they've done a great job with what they can do. And again, there's all these problem areas like we talked about tonight. Elementary, always been a thing, but I agree with you. I think it's come a really long way, and I love it out here. Like I said, we've been here for 18 years, so.
And everything comes with a trade-off.
Yeah, like you were saying.
There's, I'm very much aware of certain communities who have chosen not to grow. And the trade-off of lack of growth is stagnation. And what's very, very unfortunate is the depth of stagnation and the loss of opportunity, not only for the residents, but for the rising generation and the challenges and difficulties that it's created. It's also attracted certain individuals that have made life even more difficult. And so growth, as long as it's done responsibly, is always positive, but it does come with a sacrifice. And all of us who have been here for a lengthy period of time, one of the sacrifices, it's sad to see the antelope go. It's sad to see a lot of the wildlife and reasons why we moved here go. But the trade-off is the opportunities of many educational, work-wise, ability to travel more quickly, even in congestion. There's so many trade-offs that are more positive. One good thing that I feel like came out of the concerns that were expressed is that clearly there's, while it's difficult to see your community grow in the way that it is and losing its, old feel and openness and so forth, clearly there's some challenges that probably need some attention this year, especially as we're doing the master plan and look at how can we help that area to grow responsibly and provide all the transportation needs and everything over there. I had one other question. I appreciated Commissioner Burns leaving. I'm feeling like she needed to leave for that item of business. Question in my mind, I think of my father-in-law who used to be on the city council, for example. He knows everyone knows him. And so when we know someone, it's not necessarily excludes us from being able to vote, but appreciated her recognizing if there's a conflict of interest you felt and making that known. So just appreciate that.
Fred?
Just adding to that, in your bylaws, it does kind of talk about conflict of interest, and if you're curious, I can read that to you and let you know what it says. A planning commission member may declare a conflict of interest from a specific. Members of the planning commission who may have an actual, apparent, or reasonably foreseeable conflict of interest on any matter on the commission's agenda shall disclose and explain the apparent conflict to the commission. After declaring a conflict of interest, a planning commission member shall leave the room, shall not participate in the discussion or vote on that matter, nor attempt to use his or her influence with other commissioners either before, during, or after the meeting. Below are some guidelines for conduct. There may be a conflict of interest if there are personal, familial, or financial ties between a planning commissioner and a proponent/opponent of any item of business. The planning commission shall follow the standards of conduct for municipal officers and employees and disclose actual or potential conflicts of interest as provided for in the Municipal Officers and Employees Ethics Act. So hopefully that kind of clarifies. And in this instance, we discussed the conflict of interest prior to the meeting. And Ms. Burns is managing a campaign for one of the parties who was named on one of the matters. And we didn't know for sure if it would be a conflict of interest or not, but it's kind of an apparent conflict. And so she decided to recuse herself voluntarily. So if you ever feel that you would like to recuse yourself from a matter because you feel that there may be an apparent conflict, then you are invited to do so. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thanks.
So when you go off about Michael Muehlman and the great work he does.
Major conflict.
Okay, well, I wanted to talk about our trip last week, but I am too hot and not in a frame of mind. So we'll do it next time. Yes, Ken.
Could I just add, I really like those bylaws. If there's a conflict of interest, in some municipalities, they just don't vote. But I like it where you actually remove yourself from the room. So it's very clear cut. So.
Thanks. Director's report. Does David have anything he wants to pass to us? Hopefully he's already passed it to you. We're not waiting for his text.
Dave?
Although he's been very responsive.
Yeah, he has.
Yes, I don't know how long it takes for text to travel from
Maybe
Kanab,
a photo
but
next time?
Zoom.
Red Rock Country, right? Okay, hit that gavel.
Yes.
I want to let you know, I emailed Allison Crowder about the temperature in the meeting room. So hopefully it will be addressed prior to the next meeting. And you guys got to preview a spring meeting.
Right.
Yes.
Hopefully they fix it by the time of the next meeting.
Right. Have we heard anything from Dave on the director's report?
David said he has no comment.
Okay,
No
cool.
comments, but I just wanted to remind commissioners, those bylaws are located in your Dropbox anytime you want to.
Thank
Have a little light reading.
I'm assuming we don't need to go into a closed session, and we're going to adjourn until April 14th, our next meeting. Woo-hoo.